Welcome to the Tech Show. I'm Sonia Gavankar, and this week we talk cybersecurity with Dr. Vahid Behzadon. We go back to school with Dr. Jenna Sheffield, and another gadget tries to take my money. All that and more coming up on the Tech Show. Now it's time for the latest. Hold on to your hallucinogenics. Health officials have ordered the Coachella Music Festival scheduled for April to be canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. It's the third time the pandemic has forced the annual outdoor festival that draws hundreds of thousands of fans to the California desert to be postponed or canceled. This order is intended to reduce the likelihood of exposure to COVID-19. The order states, if COVID-19 were detected at these festivals, the scope and number of attendees and the nature of the venue would make it infeasible, if not impossible, to track those who may be placed at risk. Coachella's 2020 festival was originally scheduled for April 2020, then later postponed to October 2020 before finally being scrapped altogether until April 2021. There's no word from organizers or health officials about when Coachella will be rescheduled, but Billboard is reporting it may be pushed to October. And if vaccine distribution continues to lag and coronavirus cases keep multiplying, it's likely we'll start to see other large spring and summer events postponed or canceled as well. Google actively removed negative reviews of the Robinhood app from the Google Play Store, the company confirmed to The Verge, after some disgruntled Robinhood users organized campaigns to give the app a one-star review on Google's Play Store and Apple's App Store, and succeeded in review bombing it all the way down to a one-star rating. The company has now deleted enough reviews to bring it back to its nearly 4 stars. Robinhood came under intense scrutiny recently after the stock trading app announced it would block purchases of GameStop, AMC, and other stocks made popular by the Wall Street Bets subreddit. And some users have already replaced their deleted one-star reviews with new ones to make their anger heard. It's not outside Google's purview to delete these posts. Google's policies explicitly prohibit reviews intended to manipulate an app's rating. And the company says it has a system that combines human intelligence with machine learning to detect and enforce policies and its violations in ratings and reviews. Google says it specifically took actions on reviews that it felt confident violated these policies, the company tells The Verge. Google says companies do not have the ability to delete reviews themselves. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
So today I have to spend the day not using any black inventions. Luckily for me, there's a lot of natural light in my apartment, so I don't have to rely on light bulbs to get ready. But I don't know how I'm gonna get out because apparently I can't use doorknobs either. I feel like this is gonna be really bad. Like, of all the days, this is gonna be one of those days. I can't leave my apartment. So I texted my neighbor and they let me out of my apartment. But then I realized that, yeah, that's another doorknob.
No, you. Stay for you. Happy Black History Month.
Hey there.
Oh, hi. Why, thank you so much.
Well, I'll see you later.
I feel like you're enjoying this way too much.
Maybe. You have yourself a great Black History Month.
What, Michael?
Phone?
Why?
No.
Why?
Happy Black History Month.
Lately, apps like Reddit and Facebook have become the news, having incredible political and economic impacts. So we are going to look at big changes coming to the biggest players in this week's App Tech. Was there really any other app news story lately besides the GameStop short squeeze? That a group of Reddit users took on the hedge funds was the stuff of legends, even if the reality was that Wall Street likely got in on both sides of the trade. Whether you found yourself in the camp of admiring the spectacle or watching the train wreck in horror, or both, the GameStop frenzy upended the status quo. It rattled the traditional ways of doing things, much like what the internet has done to almost everything else it touches, whether that's publishing, media, creation, politics, and more. Trading app Robinhood and social app Reddit, home to the Wall Street Bets forum driving the GameStop push, immediately benefited from the community-driven efforts to squeeze the hedge funds and jumped to the top of the App Store. But Robinhood's subsequent failure to be transparent as to why it was forced to stop customers from buying the meme stock like GameStop or others it needed more cash, quickly damaged its reputation. Some investors have now sued for their losses. Others started petitions. And even more began downranking the app with one-star reviews, which Google then removed. Tick-Tock has a vaping problem. Although a 2019 U.S. law made it illegal to sell or market e-cigarettes to anyone under the age of 21, Tick-Tock videos featuring top brands of disposable e-cigarettes and vapes for sale have been relatively easy to find on the app. These videos, set to popular and upbeat music, clearly target a teenage customer base with offers of now unauthorized cartridge flavors like fruit and mint in the form of disposable vape. Some sellers even promote their discreet packaging services, where the vapes they ship to customers can be hidden from parents' prying eyes by being placed under the package's stuffing or tucked into other products, like makeup bags or fuzzy slippers. What's more, when this content is reported to Tick-Tock, it's not always taken down. We'll be back with more of the Tech Show in 1 minute. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Tech Show. Digital security is a necessity as we move our lives further and further online, and it becomes a lot more complicated than just antivirus software that comes with your computer. With kids and parents in video conferences all day and e-commerce exploding, we need to know what to do to prevent a breach and what to do when that happens. Luckily, we have Dr. Vahid Bezadan here today. He is an assistant professor of computer science and data science from the Tagliatella College of Engineering, and he studies cybersecurity, including attacks on web infrastructure. Hello, Vahid. Welcome to the show.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
So before we get into how safe or unsafe our country's online infrastructure is, tell me about how much of our stuff and our information exists online now, and is that good or bad?
Well, quite a bit of our information is already online in one form or another. It can be explicit or implicit. That information includes, well, of course, your name, most of the times your current address, your address history, your credit card information, your credit history information, and sometimes education history, your employment history, almost everything that is officially known about you, and sometimes things that are not so officially known about you, like your interests, your political bias, your circles of friendship, and the types of things that your community of friends are interested in. These are some of the things that are already available online if you've been living in the internet era, essentially, on social media or on online shopping platforms like Amazon. These are already out there.
So is that bad or good or indifferent?
That's actually a very, very interesting question. It's very good because the fact that your information is up there means that you have already achieved something through internet that could not have been done through other means, or were not as cheap, as simple to do through other means. Amazon has simplified our lives quite a lot, or Facebook has allowed us to connect to each other in a different way, in a simpler way sometimes. Same goes with Twitter. Now, this is the good side of information sharing. Of course, there is an ugly side too. The ugly side is sometimes you're not aware that you're sharing this amount of information with internet companies, and perhaps even more, and we'll talk about that probably later. Other than that, the fact that you're trusting the company with whom you're sharing your information may actually end up costing you. A lot of the major online companies, or even minor ones, have been compromised. There have been major data leaks, which means that your information may have been leaked to unauthorized parties, parties that don't really want or share your interests in security, privacy, or even commercial objectives and interests.
But so when you sign up for these things and not being naive about the information that you put in can always be extracted, what is the responsibility of the companies when it comes to privacy? And what happens when there is a breach? Are they responsible in some way?
Well, companies are expected legally to provide some form of privacy as well as confidentiality, as agreed upon by the EULA, the End User License Agreement, that I agree to checkbox that we always click and we never actually get to read, or I accept. Now, when a breach happens in the US, companies are legally required to disclose the breach and, of course, the type of information that has been breached as well. Often this happens quite early on, but not early enough. So sometimes it takes 1 or 2 months for the company to even become aware of the breach, let alone to disclose the breach to their customers or their clients or the government. In the case of the Equifax breach that happened a few years ago, it took the company months to discover the extent of the breach, and the customers were not made aware of the situation for a really, really long time. So these are some of the issues that are being dealt with through legal and policy outlets, but they are not resolved yet completely.
And I think it's really interesting that you say that they're legally required to disclose, not do anything to help you out. They just have to tell you about it, and they're not even really doing that in a timely manner. So it really is on the consumer to be aware, read the contract that you're signing with these companies, but also be thoughtful about some of the checking that you need to do. So on that matter, a lot of what we do now is cloud-based. So if I install a Nest, for instance, are there things I should be checking on my side to make sure that I'm making sure the device is safe when I'm using it?
Well, there are standard procedures that need to be followed with regards to end user device security. Often, if you're working for a company, there is some sort of security policy that needs to be followed. If you are dealing with a personal device, make sure that all the software that you're using is authentic. It's often quite easy to do so when you are connecting to their update server and you're downloading a new update. They automatically verify whether many of the reputable software companies verify the authenticity of your previous version as well as the new update that you're downloading.
Well, thank you for doing that important work. Lots of viruses, not just COVID, that need to be dealt with in this time that we're living in. Thank you so much, Fahid, for being with us, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Welcome back to the Tech Show. Have you been thinking about going back to school? The options have exploded since so many of our universities have gone to 100% online. But as long as remote learning has existed, there have been stigmas of, is it a real degree if you don't have to sit in a classroom? Here to discuss this with us today is Dr. Jenna Sheffield, Assistant Provost for Curriculum Innovation and Assistant Professor of English from the College of Arts and Science in New Haven, Connecticut. Welcome to the show, Jenna.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So as Provost of Curriculum and Innovation, you have probably had a very busy year. Can you tell us some about that?
Yeah, so we were one of the schools that had to transition to all remote learning in March, and it was absolutely a challenge. We were not a school that relied on a lot of online teaching and learning. So a lot of faculty had to learn technologies in a different way, had to think about how they could teach their courses differently. And, that's especially challenging for courses that you think about as being very hands-on, labs, engineering courses. So it was a challenge for faculty and students alike, but I think we did a good job with it and have all been learning a lot about how maybe we can do teaching and learning differently post-pandemic.
What do you think will happen with brick and mortar institutions that were forced to go all remote so quickly? Do you think the college experience will ever come back? And is that even important to the experience?
I think it depends on what the students want. I do think that some brick and mortar institutions will, for the most part, go back to quote unquote normal or some sort of new normal. And I think it's because there are students that really do want that college experience. They want to be in the dorms. They want to be involved in athletics or sororities or whatever the case may be, as well as being able to walk into their professor's office for office hours. Certain kinds of learners tend to prefer to be in the classroom and doing the hands-on learning that I mentioned before. But I do think that we're going to see more blended learning, and where some students may be face-to-face and other students may be online at the same time. And I think we'll see more online courses being offered because it offers flexibility to students. It allows them to work. It allows us to offer an education that's more accessible to a broader array of students of all different ages.
All degrees are not equal. What should we be looking for in an online program? And what's appropriate or what lends itself to remote learning the best in terms of subject matter?
Well, I would say, especially if parents or students are thinking about which way to go, I would say sometimes it has to do with the university or college itself and what their expertise is in terms of how you might make that decision about which school to go to or what to major in. However, there are certain fields that I think lend themselves better to online learning. Something like the humanities. I was interviewed early on during the pandemic about how could you possibly teach the humanities online? And I thought to myself, well, I think it's actually not that difficult compared to some other fields. My students don't have to be doing experiments. We had to send lab kits home with students for our chemistry students. Whereas, if you're in a very discussion focused class and you've got a good web conferencing tool and collaborative documents that students can work on and things like that, I think humanities courses are going to be a lot easier. So it really depends on the field that the students want to go in and how doable it is. Obviously, clinicals, labs, I hope those things will return to normal.
Are there any disadvantages to online learning?
Yeah, so one concern has to do with how do we know that the student is who they say they are. I think cheating can be a bit more rampant. And so that's a concern for schools and for just thinking about the credibility of the education that schools are offering and that students are coming out with at the end of the day. And then for students, you do have to be more self-directed. You have to be able to, I don't want to say teach yourself because your faculty are there guiding you through the learning, but you do have to be able to pace things out, manage your time, in a different way than when you're in a face-to-face classroom. And that really appeals to some students who can be very organized and detail-oriented, whereas other students want to rely on their professor to be in the classroom, reminding them about these upcoming due dates or forcing them to start working on a paper draft. So it depends on the student, I think.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Jenna Sheffield.
Thank you for having me.
Now it's time for Take My Money, where this week we have yet another UV cleaning invention since Lysol spray apparently doesn't exist anymore.
Introducing G-Flash, a 4-in-1 wearable hygiene kit. Nowadays, virus and bacteria in different types and size are surrounding us. Wherever you breathe, you sense and you touch. G-Flash provides you with 24/7 hygiene protection. It comes with a built-in 500 mAh rechargeable battery and charged by micro USB. This is a must hygiene kit you should carry every day. There are 3 operating modes in G-Flash. Plasma sanitizer directly kills bacteria in air. UV and ozone sterilizer removes bacteria and virus stuck on surface. While odor remover removes bacteria in liquid and surroundings. UV and ozone sterilizer. It scans personal belonging via UVC LED for 1 minute to disinfect.
This looks way too easy, but if you can back up your promises, G-Flash and your Google Translate narration reading robot, go ahead and take our money. I'll give it to you with a smile. Thanks for joining us this week. Follow us at The Tech Show TV and join the conversation. Check you later.